Let's start. We are clearly running late, and it's very difficult. It's really challenging to be the last ones after such a long day. So we'll try to make it as dynamic as possible. Let me introduce myself. I am Octavi Quintana. I'm the director of PRIMA. PRIMA is a foundation, that probably some of you know, encompassing 20 countries around the Mediterranean. And we fund research on water, agriculture, and food, very much related with climate change, of course, in the Mediterranean. We have a budget of 700 million, and we have, among other things, gender policy. Let me say that before starting anything, that if there is a social change in the last 100 years, that for me is probably the most important that we had everywhere in the world, is the role of women in society. And even now, these days, we think that we're going backwards in many social achievements. I think that this one is irreversible. But there is still a lot to do. So it has been a huge change, but we need to do much more. And let me tell you that just few dates from PRIMA, a couple of figures. First of all, we have the gender dimension integrated in all projects. This is a requirement for all PRIMA projects. We fund every year an award, the PRIMA Woman Greening Food Systems Award in the Mediterranean. This award is 10,000 euros for two awardees. This is, the award is for women or women-led organizations in the field of the greening food. We want to give women a visibility and the empowerment of women visibility all across our activities, and especially in Europe. Let me share with you a few metrics. 35% of coordinators of PRIMA projects are women. 59% of PRIMA projects have developed specific research and innovation activities, gender-oriented. And 44 of projects declare, and this is the most important thing to me, declare that integrated gender dimension has influenced positively their impact. So 44 of the projects realize that the fact that have women and this women dimension in the projects increases impact. Among the 4,000 individual authors of our publications, 53% were male and 45 female. So I think that this is also a good gender balance in what we do. I could go through the projects, but I'll stay here. Just briefly mention, I was discussing now with a couple of colleagues outside a project which is led by women in Morocco and Algeria, trying to set up cooperatives, agriculture cooperatives in both countries. It is very difficult, it is very challenging, but yet they made it. And it's a project of Section 1. For those who do not understand what Section 1 and Section 2, just keep in mind that this is a real, section 1 is a real difficult section. We have a success rate of 4%, which means that it is really difficult. Well, we have a very good panel today with us. With this brief introduction, I want to go directly to the panelists. We have 5 panelists, and who will tell us their views on what they do, their organizations. I will not go into a long development of their CVs. I will just say which organizations they represent. So we have first Christine Campeau, who is the Global Policy Director on Food and Nutrition Systems of Care. And I'd like her to start setting the scene in this, or setting the scene on what equality, why equality is important in the agri-food sector. So go ahead, please.
Thank you for the warm introduction, and thank you for inviting us here today. I've learned so much from all of you, so I'm happy to be part of this last panel for today. I was asked to start off by saying a little bit about CARE for those who don't know the organization. 78 years ago, Europe was post-war. There was a lot of famine, so a bunch of Americans were sending care packages from America to Europe to support famine relief. The packages included tinned meats, it included apricots, lard, sugar, salt, the very basics. And then once famine was over, we continued sending packages, but then it was more books and tools and whatever communities needed at that time. Unfortunately, 78 years later, we still exist. I wish we could work ourselves out of a job, but we're not there yet. But the model has evolved. Now we're in 120 countries. We don't send anything in the same way that we used to. It is more about empowering people and building agency so that they can claim the lives and the livelihoods and dignity that they deserve. So CARE, we have a specific focus on women, women's empowerment, and girls as well, because on that pathway out of poverty, women are slightly behind their male counterparts. So that's really as CARE where we see our added value and where we really focus our efforts. Sorry, when we talk about food systems and we think about inequalities across food systems, there's so much potential to get it better. Let me leave you with a statement, or start off with a statement that should keep you awake at night. Inequalities are not accidental. They are designed and built into the fabric of our economies, our societies, and our political system. We have created this system, and we have the power to change the system. Right now, 1.3 billion people work across our agri-food sectors to feed us every day. 1.3 billion people. And 3.83 billion people live, they depend on these livelihoods in these sectors for their household food and security. That's 1/3 of humanity is connected to our food systems. We're not talking about a small industry here. It's 2/3 of the world's extreme poor. So if we're thinking really this is modern slavery in my opinion. And what we eat today is still produced by 112 million children around the world that aren't being able to access education, aren't being able to live their childhood fully because they're producing our food. These people face fatal accidents, they're poisoned by pesticides, and they experience occupational therapy amongst other things. I'm a Canadian. I had the pleasure of being in Canada last week. My Canadian government had invited me back because we're really looking a bit better at this sector in the agri-food sector. And in Canada, we're really good at forced labor and child labor, but not so good on seasonal and migrant workers. And these are temporary workers who come to Canada, and we depend on these people. And they can't, even though they pay into social systems, they're not able to benefit from what they've paid into. Women account for 26% of these workers, and despite their essential role, and mostly in the lower end of the sector, not in the fancy parts where all the money's made, they have lack of access to resources, productive resources, inputs, technologies, financial services, education, and trainings. They earn less than men. They face violence just by going to work every day. They face discrimination, particularly during pregnancy, and they are less likely to be wage earners at all. And the climate emergency is making that even worse. We've discovered at CARE, and I'm sure we're going to hear from IUCN, who also has some great statistics, that female-headed households lose more than 8% of their income due to heat stress, more than 3% due to flood compared to male-headed households. That's $36 billion and $16 billion respectively across low and middle income countries. If the average temperature increases by just 1%, 1 degree Celsius, and we all know that it will, these women will face a staggering 34% greater loss in total income compared to their male counterparts. We saw this as well during COVID-19. We watched this inequity play out in real time. Women were 1.8 times more vulnerable to lose their jobs than men, or pulled into the care economy, because that's what women do. We take care of everybody, including our jobs, to make an income. When those jobs disappeared, so did the food on the table. For everybody eats less, but especially for those women. One more point, on global policies, I'm a global policy director, so I'm always looking at the policies. And thank you for those of you today who are talking, Lee from this morning, who was talking about the importance of policies. We look a lot at women as, we reduce them to their reproductive and productive roles, but we need to really look beyond this vision, this limited vision, and change the conditions so that women and girls can really own their own power and take the lead in transforming their own nutrition and their own lives as a right in and of itself. They're facing the triple burden. They must be productive workers, oversee unpaid care work, play a crucial role in connecting communities, and bring generations to the table and make sure everybody's fed. Women aren't just beneficiaries, we are the food system.
Thank you very much, and thank you for keeping the time. I think that you set the scene very well, and underlining the importance of taking into account equality in food security. And now I'd like to introduce Anna Jenderedjian. I did it well. Good. Just for once. She's a gender and social protection specialist at the FAO. So please, the floor is yours. So the first round of questions, I forgot to tell you, but will be about presenting their institutions. And then the second one will be about specific questions for each of them. So please, Anna.
Thank you so much. Thank you for setting the scene, because I will be focusing on the region of Europe and Central Asia, which is my region where I provide technical support to the office. A couple of words that within CIHEAM, the partnering countries are Albania and Turkey but we also have countries from the greater Mediterranean region, such as Montenegro, Bosnia and Herzegovina, if you ask them, and others, which are also involved. So the programming support that I'm providing, technical support, is covering these 18 countries and territories, from Western Balkans to Ukraine, Eastern Europe, to Central Asia and Caucasus. So the context I will be providing here. One would say that the region is very advanced in terms of gender indicators. We like to say that. But however, if we review the status of gender equality in the region, we see that some indicators are stagnating and some of them are having setbacks. And these trends are especially prominent in rural areas. On the other hand, for a long time, the region had very strong EU accession aspirations. So one would assume that gender equality was on political agenda. The situation is that these trends are changing rapidly. We have two trends in the countries. There is more, let's say, not backlash, but resistance to the terminology, especially gender terminology, which is being revisited in the national legislations. We have changes in Georgia, we have changes in Bosnia, where sexes and equity between women and men are reshaped, but also a little bit more, I would say, reluctance to adopt gender-responsive policies and programs in agri-food systems because of perceived vision that, for example, USAID deprioritized in the future, it will not be on political agenda. So the last several years have been very complex. And in this context, we also have, and I have to provide this framework to go to the point that we have also European Commission for Agriculture, which is a founding body that we report. And this comprises from 54 countries of the region, including the European Union member states and European Commission. What was interesting in this context that while this was deprioritized and we see these setbacks, the member states asked from FAO a stronger support to address the status of rural women in agri-food systems, which also a reflection of the overwhelming agreement between the member states that rural women especially represent the groups that are under risk of being left behind due to the policies, due to the programs and attention to economic development. So while smallholders as a whole are the same category, there is also the issues with the rural women, especially because most of their work is informal, is seasonal, is underpaid, or is done in a way that is not providing opportunities for leadership and empowerment. This is the context of the challenges that are not also very specific for FAO, but also for other organizations working in the region. Just to provide a little bit of context and what FAO does, we of course focus on evidence and knowledge generation because this is very important in this context of confusion of whether gender equality is important or whether it's something that EU is prescribing. And evidence is a key to create gender responsive policies. Second is the capacity development, policy support and advocacy, and also actions on the ground, because without specific examples, we can't really promote gender responsive policies. I would not go through these details, but I would like to encourage you, if you are interested in looking at what are the trends in terms of gender equality in agri-food systems, to access this resource, which is available in English and Russian languages, which looks at the agri-food systems overall and the status of rural women. In the previous presentation, we also had some mentions about projects, the need for moving away from these approaches, which are focused only on projects. And this is one of the challenges I would like to highlight. We have been partnering with UN Women quite a lot in Western Balkans in making sure that the technical support requested from the Ministries of Agriculture is in line with gender equality. And there are some examples from Albania, from Bosnia and Herzegovina, from Montenegro and Turkey that show the successes, but also the challenges of the projects. In all these countries, the donors are, with the exception of Montenegro, are European Union countries. And Turkey is an exception because it's a project that looks funds. So Turkey funds for the project in Uzbekistan and Tajikistan, which also shows some trends in how the donor cooperation and self-funding will be. So Turkey requests FAO support for the project with the regional implications. However, we should be very much aware of the trends in the future. Finally, just to conclude here, these are the overview of the trends and the needs for our very targeted and localized support to the countries to understand why women and social inclusion in agri-food systems is important, and it's part of the realities, that this is not only a matter of productivity of agri-food systems, economic situation or social assistance, but a matter of human rights, sustainability and resilience. And this is a challenge that we will discuss. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Anna, for this. Well, now you know how FAO works, so that was easy because it's a huge organization. And now I have the pleasure to introduce you, Noura Abdelwahab, She is a socio-economics and gender expert in the International Water Management Institute. So please, Noura, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, and it's a pleasure to be here with you, and thanks to CIHEAM Zaragoza for the kind invitation. The International Water Management Institute is a research for development organization. It is a CGR. It is under the CGR umbrella. Its head office is based in Sri Lanka, and it has country offices and regional offices in Asia, Africa, and Latin America. And thanks to Christine and Anna for setting the scene. And I would like to confirm that challenges facing MENA, rural women in MENA and youth are not different from like the global and from Asia. And that's why we thought about the need to adopt gender transformative approaches, because we need to, our vision and mission is to have resilient, inclusive food systems. So we thought about how to break this cycle and how to address these demand and supply challenges through the establishment of regional innovation hubs, where this can be used as an innovative, holistic approach for agri-food systems, and also as a common space where stakeholders work together rather than being fragmented. So it has living labs, adopting gender transformative approaches for gender and youth, connects the dots with all regional, international, and local stakeholders, and avails space to support private sector innovations in the Wi-Fi nexus, and also avail needed financial resources through financial institutions. So like briefly, I'm going to present this like framework that we thought about. This is the result of like a research of last 2 years that we have been undertaking in MENA, where an interviews with SMEs, local partners, and financial institutions, where we believe that like the entry point for supporting women and youth here is women and youth are would be benefit in the living labs, and also these living labs would benefit from innovations for MSMEs that have also women-led MSMEs. And it would capitalize on like research and development in labs of universities, providing them with investment readiness programs, also having some sort of interventions, ESG interventions within this innovation hub, provide technical assistance to the MSMEs and women-led MSMEs and youth, availing access to markets, and also availing blended finance and crop insurance schemes. On the other side, there is a need to have support services and enabling environment for these innovation hubs that through having drought monitoring systems for farmers, having continuous monitoring of the progress of the MSMEs, and also like policy advocacy and policy support from the government. Thank you.
Thank you, Noura. And this aspect of innovation, I mean, gender issues in innovation, not just in the normal policy, is even more relevant, because if there is a lack of women representation in research, in innovation, is enormous. Thank you very much. Now it is turn to the other male here in the on the table. Dario Pollicino, he represents the International Union of Conservation of Nature. So please, Dario, the floor is yours.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for the invitation for, I mean, I'm here representing IUCN, but more specifically, the IUCN Center for Mediterranean Cooperation. And I want to say that I won't speak about gender in environmental conservation, but I hope I won't disappoint you anyway. I just want to say that IUCN is the oldest and largest member-based union for nature in the world, and we are very proud of that. IUCN has more than 1,400 members, and including governments, subnational governments, national and international NGOs, indigenous peoples organizations, and we have 7 commissions with tens of thousands of volunteers that contribute to achieving the goals of IUCN. And so this is to say that IUCN is really a platform for horizontal and transversal cooperation. And so diversity is the essence of this organization. And I want to emphasize this because I believe that the structure of IUCN reflects a bit the type of cooperation we believe in that we need going forward. And recently, 1 month ago, we had the IUCN World Conservation Congress, and we had more than 10,000 people participating in presence. And this was a great proof of the capacity of this organization to convene people with different interests, different responsibilities, and convince them to sit at the same table to have a dialogue about the priorities and the issues we have to face and the challenges we have to address. And one of the main issues that was discussed is how climate change and unsustainable land management are driving forces behind droughts, desertification, water scarcity, but for us, in a way, most importantly, biodiversity loss. And biodiversity loss is not just an ecological issue. Biodiversity is also very important for socioeconomic reasons. Biodiversity, when we lose biodiversity in our agroecosystems, we lose the capacity of these agroecosystems to provide ecosystem services, very important ones like nutrient cycling, pest regulation, water regulation, soil fertility. So we should really focus on biodiversity. We believe in cooperation, in international cooperation, since really biodiversity is key if we want to guarantee a sustainable future for our food systems. And I'm saying this because I think that we should not consider biodiversity as a luxury that some landscapes can afford. It is rather a priority, an essential condition for rural communities to thrive. And so this is very much related also to some of the socioeconomic problems that we have discussed today. And so I want to say that future cooperation should take this into account, in our opinion, and then maybe I will have the chance to elaborate more on these later on. We believe that these challenges should be also addressed in cooperation, taking into account 3 pillars that are also quite important pillars also for an agroecological transition, that are a diálogo de saberes, that means the exchange of knowledge, so between modern science and traditional knowledge. There's also horizontal cooperation. There was quite an important topic also in some of these discussions today. So the idea of promoting a cooperation that supports peer-to-peer knowledge exchange, and so to allow farmers to learn from each other. And the third point would be creating networks. And creating networks really facilitate the first 2 points. Creating networks facilitates the possibility to have an exchange of knowledge and to have an horizontal cooperation.
Thank you very much, Dario. Very clear. We go with biodiversity later on. To finish the first round, Eva Castro, she's the president of the UN Women in Spain. So please, Eva, tell us what you...
Muchas gracias, Octavi. Me vais a permitir que me dirija a ustedes en español. Sí, como decía Octavi, yo formo parte del Comité Español de ONU Mujeres. ONU Mujeres creo que es conocido por todos y todas, pero bueno, para contextualizar, es la Organización de Naciones Unidas que lleva ejerciendo su labor desde el 2010 para promover la igualdad. Este año se cumplen precisamente 30 años de la Declaración de Derechos Humanos. Y entonces este es un poco el cometido de ONU Mujeres, ¿no? Pues que se cumplan todas esas promesas que se hicieron y ya que estamos en la década de la acción, tenemos que acelerar el ritmo porque nos estamos quedando un poquito atrás, ¿no? Creo que la igualdad está sufriendo un revés, ¿no? A todos los niveles por la crisis de financiación global, unida a la emergencia climática, como decía Dario, y nos toca ahora mismo acelerar el ritmo. ¿Qué hacemos nosotros desde el comité aquí en España? Pues nosotros apoyamos desde lo local a toda esta necesidad internacional. Nuestra labor es básicamente de sensibilización y fomentar, por supuesto, una incidencia política, ¿no? Para que se desarrollen más políticas, que haya más cooperación y que se tenga en cuenta, por supuesto, la igualdad de género en todas las políticas y movilizar a la sociedad española para conseguir fondos que son tan necesarios, ¿no? A donde no lleguen unos, tenemos que intentar llegar los otros, entre todos y todas. Decir brevemente, porque sé que después vamos a tener ocasión de profundizar en los temas, que la igualdad de género es quizá la estrategia de desarrollo más potente. Las mujeres somos parte de la solución, ¿no? Antes hablaban en el panel anterior de la necesidad de una mayor productividad, pues ahí es donde estamos las mujeres, ¿no? Como parte de esa solución y también de la innovación, ¿no? Qué importante es tener en cuenta la innovación. Que hay barreras, desde luego, que los países, la complejidad de las diferencias entre los países, ¿no? Que ONU trabaja con casi 100 países, trabaja en sus proyectos en casi 100 países, la complejidad de las diferencias que hay es clara, pero también que tenemos aspectos en común, ¿no? En casi todos los países en el rural, yo trabajo personalmente en zonas rurales, y los problemas a veces, para las mujeres, a veces son casi los mismos, que parece increíble, pero es que es real. La propiedad de la tierra sigue estando en manos de otros, ¿no? Por las leyes, esas interpretaciones que se hacen de las herencias, por temas culturales, sigue estando en manos de los hombres. Y eso a las mujeres nos va dejando excluidas, ¿no? Si no tienes propiedad, tampoco puedes acceder ni a créditos, ¿no? Ni a préstamos, porque si no demuestras propiedad no hay acceso al dinero. Y el dinero es clave, ¿no? Entonces nos va dejando excluidas de muchas maneras. Esta exclusión económica hace que nos quedemos relegadas a los cuidados, que después los voy a poner en valor. Pero sí que es cierto que las mujeres al final nos teníamos que quedar haciendo lo que nos toca de siempre, ¿no? Como a mí, que me criaron en el rural, me criaba mi abuela con una mano, lavaba la ropa en esos tanques comunitarios que había. Con la otra nos cuidaba a nosotras, vigilaba el ganado, cultivaba la tierra, hacía de todo, llevaba la ropa en la cabeza cuando nos íbamos para casa. Ese modelo de mujer es el mismo modelo en casi todas partes, ¿no? Los nexos son comunes. Pero sí que es cierto que esa manera de mantenernos ahí nos limita en cuanto al tiempo, ¿no? No nos queda tiempo para hacer otras cosas. ¿Cómo vamos a liderar si estamos haciendo todo esto? Resulta complicado. Y luego tengo que decirlo aquí en la introducción, que estamos en el mes, en noviembre, ¿no? El mes del 25 de noviembre, que es el Día contra la Violencia de Género. Y la violencia sigue siendo una de las lacras y de las mayores atentados contra los derechos humanos, ¿no? A nivel mundial, ¿no? En esas similitudes que tenemos, esta desgraciadamente es una de ellas. Y en las zonas rurales, ¿no? Que es un poco lo que nos ocupa hoy, ¿no? Donde se produce, sigue siendo una de los mayores índices están en las zonas rurales, no hace falta irse lejos. Aquí en España, el año pasado, de los casos de violencia de género, el 52%, si no tengo mal el dato, fue en mujeres que vivían en zonas rurales, ¿no? Las mujeres víctimas eran de zonas rurales. Eso extendido al resto de los países donde hay muchas más dificultades, pues como comprenderán, es un problema mucho más grave. Y nada, decir que eso, que dotar a estas mujeres de esos espacios donde puedan desarrollarse, ¿no? Donde puedan tener tiempo para desarrollar todo su potencial, es quizá la clave, ¿no? Pues un poco para salir de esta situación en la que nos encontramos.
Muchas gracias, Eva. Vaya presidente IUN España tenemos de mujeres potente. Bueno, vamos por la siguiente ronda de intervenciones. And I'm sorry. I'll ask first, Christine, what is CARE doing to empower women and girls?
Thank you for the question. I'm going to sound like Juan Echanove since he's left the room. True transformation happens when women have access to rights and they can claim their rights, not as beneficiaries, as actual leaders, innovators, farmers, caretakers, saleswomen, entrepreneurs. Again, not as beneficiaries. I'm going to tell you, CARE works. You missed, I was just talking about you, Juan. CARE works with the poor and most vulnerable, the less than $4 a day, the small scale food producers. So let me tell you about one powerful tool that we use. It's called Village and Saving Loans Associations, VSLAs. Since CARE and the women in Niger created VSLAs in 1991, this model has continued to grow. By 2023, we aim to reach 50 million women and girls. Why? Because the evidence shows that it works. Every $1 invested in a savings group shows a return of $9.35 in the first year and up to $18.85 by year 5. And yes, we track this. In Burundi, investing in gender equality in agriculture brought a $5 return for every $1 invested, compared to only $2 invested in agriculture programs that ignore gender equality. When women are given the opportunity to address gender inequalities, their rice production we've witnessed has grown by 2.7 times. And these benefits aren't just benefiting women, it's benefiting women and men. It's providing the critical foundation of leadership, resilience, and strengthening women's involvement in the economy, and that lifts up communities at large. And VSLAs are more than just financial tools. They're powerful platforms for collective action that transform gender norms, increase women's participation in the economy, and the response to crisis. Here's how it works. When women gain access to land, they shift their land to more agricultural practices that adjust to the changing climate. And critically, they also gain power and resources to generate and manage income from that land to support themselves and their communities. When we combine VSLAs with community-based adaptation approaches, we create resilience to food crises, to climate change, and to diverse coping strategies without requiring too much external help. This increases households and communities' capacities to face, adapt, and absorb the recurrent shocks that they continue and stresses that they continue to be challenged with. Most resilient households are those who have diversified their activities. They do market gardening, purchasing grain from cereal banks, and they build strong social networks. They can gain credit, access, and credit, grains, and seeds. They know about opportunities and they know how to benefit from them. And their generating activities produce household assets and secure more regular, balanced diets. And the impact goes far beyond economics. Women and girls report that their self-confidence is increased. These groups reinforce the belief that they can change things in their own lives. And they're quick to transform this self-confidence into social solidarity, helping their communities prepare for emergencies together. In situations of crisis, VSLAs have proven to even have an even stronger impact. And this matters more now as we're facing more and more crises and bigger emergencies and injustices of our time. This journey cannot happen alone. We realize that. CARE works with men and boys to reduce the barriers that women and girls face. We promote positive masculinity, whereby men and boys use their physical and emotional strength to champion inclusive and equal behaviors for stronger communities. And it works. In Uganda, we developed the role model men approach that encourages men and boys to reflect on how gender, masculinity, social norms, and power dynamics happen in their relationships. Groups are formed amongst men and within communities with trained role models reaching out to other men and boys to inspire larger change. What we've heard from one of the men in Uganda was, "I'm a transformed man. I teach my son every day to support women and girls in our lives because my family's success depends on it." And that's transformation.
Thank you very much. Also, watch a little bit because Raul is an expert in these econometric models. They're trying to, the leverage, to calculate the leverage. So he will be probably making comments about that. Let me ask Anna now, please. Looking ahead, what gives you the most optimism for the recognition of rural women when shaping the future? So please, your views.
Yes, thank you. So despite strong challenges and quite pending challenges with limited funding spaces, with backlash and setbacks, I think we have a lot of potential for optimism. First, because in the context of rural development, the recognitions of women's role in demographic changes in out-migration is highly recognized by the member states. I was once in Albania and I asked one woman whether she sees a future. She's a beneficiary. She's the example of Christina's project, sort of that she benefited from empowerment in economic areas. I asked her whether she sees future for her children in agriculture. And her response was, no, no way I see that. And this is the true reality that we have to face, because agriculture, if we talk about food systems transformation, if we talk about this very high level foresight exercises, we should place human perspectives, voices, and concerns at the heart of the, even though she benefited herself, in the future, she sees that there are certain setbacks, certain issues that could make the rural areas less attractive to women and to young men and women. So out-migration is a better life course strategy than staying in rural areas. And this is very important when we talk about whether there is optimism, you say. This was a very long, but there is an optimism, because when we start showcasing the examples of women who start and voicing their concerns, it creates the dialogue between policymakers and the women themselves, our constituencies, rural women, because her perspectives that there needs to be investment in care economy, in care infrastructure in rural areas are better fit to reach to the policymakers, to understand that, it's not only about gender equality, that the childcare services are far away or unavailable, or the care work for demographic changes. So in FAO, we put a lot of attention also to bringing these policy dialogues and amplifying rural women's voices. We had partnered with CIHEAM and through the platform with the Union of Mediterranean, there was a very beautiful webinar that showed the perspectives not only from rail, from the Europe and Central Asia, but also from RNE, the Near East region. It was a very good experience to show that the struggles are not localized in one country, but there are solutions that could be taken into consideration. And the second, we need to look at the partnerships, and we have experience with better partnerships that are long-standing. For example, again, Christina made my preparatory work with and also Eva also in regards to land ownership. We have work that we have been doing with the GIZ for a long time, and this is not a project, it's a just partnership that have been going on for a long time, that is complementary on our and their work in Western Balkans, where ministries of agriculture and statistical agencies can utilize disaggregated data to understand what would be the shaping of the policies. So these are the entry points for optimism, let's say.
Thank you very much, because we need, all of us, a little bit of optimism. The world is not for many joys these days. Let me now turn to Noura, because, and I'll ask you about a very delicate issue. You were talking about innovation. How do you fund living labs and all the innovation schemes? And especially, for women in this region, which is not the easiest in the world.
Thank you so much for the question, and it is a challenging, actually, question and a challenging issue, because most of the innovations last few years depended on grants or mainly, and with the phase of the USAID and with the absence of financial institutions in some countries in the MENA, especially Lebanon, these innovations as an SMEs, women-led SMEs, are facing real challenges. So the other alternative is to have blended finance by the international financial institutions and having like a subsidized interest rates for these financial institutions, namely in countries that have high interest rates. This needs international financial institutions to allocate additional funds for this. And also coupled with this, there is a need to have non-financial also services with these and technical support associated with these financing schemes. And with for the micro entrepreneurs, there is also a room for taking the VSLAs into like the second phase, or by using the funds of these VSLAs in small investment projects, having these women that contributes to the VSLAs as group of women that are investing in some micro projects. It started in Egypt in like formalizing the VSLAs through creating formal bank accounts, but still these type of business models, new business models needs to be like, still the government is still exploring what type of projects they can fund.
But do you have a specific examples of this funding happening in the region?
Yeah, there was like funding for like previous projects that was like through donors, like the Water Energy for Food program. It was a global program that has a number of donors, including USAID, SIDA, the government of the Netherlands. It was a comprehensive program.
Okay.
Yeah, so it has a quota for women-led SMEs for innovations. And also part of it was a grant, part of it was a grant, and the other parts was providing investment readiness, enabling these SMEs to raise investments, to be able to pitch in front, which is very crucial part for SMEs, especially women-led SMEs, to pitch and to be able to demonstrate that they have really a solid, scalable business model.
Thank you, Noura. Thank you very much. Let's turn back to Dario. You were, and I'll go specifically on this issue of biodiversity, which conservation of nature. In the Mediterranean, we have 0.8% of the total water of the planet, and yet we have 7 or 8% of biodiversity. How do you cope to preserve, or which are the actions to do with this huge challenge?
Yeah, great question. So yes, I mean, I concluded my previous intervention by saying that we believe that exchange of knowledge, horizontal cooperation, and networks should be a way forward for us to work for the conservation of nature. And so I want to bring some concrete examples to show how we are doing that at the moment, because we have contributed to establishing 3 platforms and networks that I would like to briefly mention to you. So the first one is called Mubadarat, and it is a platform dedicated to North Africa civil society organizations working on sustainable development and biodiversity conservation. And the idea behind this program is that solutions are usually more effective if they are designed and implemented by actors that know local contexts. And civil society organizations are also often the first ones to identify environmental problems and to start working with rural communities to address these problems. So through the Mubadarat program, IUCN raises funds and channels them to these CSOs to allow them to design their own projects and to launch them. And there are 2 main objectives. One is this funding of projects on the ground through 2 financing mechanisms. One is called the PIPA-IOSCAN, and the other one is called the Trendscap. And the other objective is to provide capacity building opportunities for these organizations, also including the helping them in their improving their project management skills and their internal governance. And to date, we have worked with 95 organizations in Algeria, Morocco, Tunisia, and Libya. And the final objective is to really help create a strong civil society network in these countries that can contribute to long-term strategies, biodiversity strategies within their own countries. And to demonstrate that this is not just a financing mechanism, but it is also a place for learning and exchange. I want to bring an example because we have organized last month a training here in Zaragoza in collaboration with CIHEAM on sustainable food systems. And we have invited more than 20 civil society organizations to be here. And we have addressed topics as nature-based solutions, water crisis management, soil conservation, and biodiversity protection. And part of the training was also dedicated to one of the tools developed by IUCN that is called the Land Health Monitoring Framework. That is a tool to monitor functional biodiversity within agricultural landscapes at different levels. So at the plot, at the farm, and the landscape level. And I don't want to talk too much about this framework because it's something that could take a lot of time, but it's a tool that I would invite you to look at. And during this training, there was also a representative of the MEDAI network, which is the second example I want to bring to this table. The MEDAI network, MEDAI stands for Mediterranean Agroecology Network, is a network that was created 2 years ago through one of the Horizon Europe projects we work with as partners, and which is called NATAI. And the idea behind this network is that some of the main barriers to an agroecological transition are not technical, are more political, and also related to the lack of information and lack of knowledge. So, and this is just to repeat some of the points that were mentioned today by many speakers. So the knowledge exists, it is often fragmented, a lot of research is produced, it doesn't always reach the practitioners, and the good practices of practitioners do not often reach policymakers. So in this case, the MEDAI network has been created with the idea to create a space to fill these gaps, to create a community of practice between researchers, between civil society organizations, between NGOs and local authorities, and to address altogether these issues. And this network has 3 main objectives. The first one is to stimulate collaboration between stakeholders involved in agroecological projects so that they can try to develop new projects, interdisciplinary projects. The second one is to try to promote an exchange of information and experience, so the network facilitates the circulation of publications, of funding opportunities, but as well as training opportunities and good examples, best practices related to agroecology, so how to implement better agroecological practices on the ground. And so far, for instance, in the last 2 years, there have been 6 webinars organized by this network. The next one will be on the 17th of this month on water resources in the oases of North Africa. And the third objective of this network is to represent the Mediterranean agroecology stakeholders internationally, to try to really speak with one voice when we speak about agroecology, and to be able to really represent this movement and to really try to convey what are the needs for an agroecological transition from all the stakeholders involved in the network. So this MEDAI really showcases a form of collaboration and cooperation that is horizontal. It does not impose a model, but rather create the conditions for actors to learn from each other and to create solutions and try to scale them up based on the local needs and the local knowledge. And the last one, I'll try to be quick because I know we are all very tired. It's called the Alliance for Mediterranean Nature and Culture. It is a program that we really are passionate about at the IUCN Med. It was created in 2021. It involves 13 organizations, and it is a group of organizations dedicated to the protection of Mediterranean cultural landscapes. And because we know that Mediterranean landscapes, many of them are the result of a long coevolution the coevolution between society and nature that has given us many multifunctional landscapes that are still alive today, although there are many challenges for them. And they have been built through adaptive management over centuries, and they are living labs where we can really learn how to unite traditional ecological knowledge with modern science. And they show that agricultural development and conservation can go hand in hand, which is something that I want to really emphasize, because sometimes we see these as two opposing interests, and whereas this is not often the case. As I was saying, these landscapes face very hard challenges due to market pressures and pressures from policies that often favor large-scale industrial farming. And this often leads to either abandonment or intensification. Usually intensification right now in North Africa and abandonment in the southern part of Europe. And these alliances work to try to share knowledge on how to face these challenges, to share knowledge on the best methodologies to monitor biodiversity, and to really speak with one voice regarding the needs of cultural landscapes in the Mediterranean. So I think I will close with this, just to say that these are examples of horizontal cooperation. So many networks in which farmers speak to each other, and where modern science can contribute to let's say can get merged with the traditional ecological knowledge to try to create new solutions and scale them up for creating and enhancing the resilience of agricultural landscapes that are under severe stresses due to different climatic factors that you all very well know.
Thank you very much, Dario. In fact, there is a lot of knowledge produced. We produce huge amounts of knowledge, but that this knowledge reaches decision makers and they take it into account, there is a challenge everywhere, and it's not just specific of your organization. Thank you very much, Eva. And I'll ask you in Spanish so you can take out your earphones. I'll go through the care issue. La carga de cuidados que tienen la mujer en el ámbito rural es en realidad un obstáculo para que pueda desarrollar otras acciones. ¿Cómo puedes pensar o qué idea se te ocurre para que haya una remuneración para la mujer en esos cuidados, una financiación y que las mujeres tengan una gobernanza o participen en la gobernanza de los recursos? Es muy facilito, en un minuto lo puedes responder.
Pregunta, Octavi. A ver, seré breve. Los cuidados no son una carga en sí mismos. Los cuidados son lo que nos define como sociedad, no qué humanidad queremos construir si no cuidamos de nuestras personas, ¿no? de nuestros hijos y de nuestros mayores, ¿no? Esta es un poco la base. La base de la Agenda 2030, de los Objetivos de Desarrollo Sostenible, son las personas en el centro. Pues en el centro tenemos que estar, en el centro tienen que estar los cuidados, en el centro de todas las políticas. Si los cuidados fuesen la columna vertebral de las políticas, tendríamos seguro mayor justicia económica, comunidades más sólidas y tendríamos la posibilidad, las mujeres, de ganar tiempo. Porque el tiempo es la clave para que las mujeres participen en todos esos proyectos que se mencionaron hoy, que son maravillosos, pero que nos pasa muchas veces que cuando quieres trabajar con mujeres rurales en cualquier lugar del mundo, no tienen tiempo para dedicar a esos proyectos. Entonces, ¿cómo hacemos para dotarlas de un poquito más de tiempo, ¿no? De esa pobreza del tiempo que ellas mismas tienen? Y como hoy estamos hablando de cooperación, ¿no? Pues esos proyectos de cooperación tendrían que tener métricas métricas que tengan en cuenta otros factores, ¿no? No solo las infraestructuras, no solo las semillas, las maneras de producir, la innovación, sino que las métricas también tendrían que estar en reducir los tiempos en los que las mujeres, dentro de sus labores de cuidado, que ahí está la alimentación, el ir a por agua, ¿no? Todo eso que implica, pues que esas métricas incluyan los tiempos que se reducen para las mujeres, por ejemplo, a la hora de ir a buscar agua, ¿no? Para que a las mujeres les queden tiempos que dedicar a hacer otras cosas. ¿Qué más podríamos hacer? Pues que esos proyectos incluyesen infraestructuras sociales. Tenemos que repartirnos los cuidados entre todos y todas, ¿no? Que no son algo solo de las mujeres. Como humanidad tenemos que repartirlos entre todos y todas. Entonces tendríamos que dotarlas de infraestructuras sociales como guarderías, centros de atención a mayores, ¿no? Para que ellas puedan disponer de nuevo de tiempo, ¿no? Ese tiempo que van ganando con cada una de estas acciones. ¿Y qué nos quedaría como último punto fundamental? Sería que las mujeres queremos estar donde se decide, donde se toman las decisiones, ¿no? Ahí es donde nosotras queremos estar. ¿Qué pasa? Que tradicionalmente sufrimos un proceso de baja autoestima, le vamos a llamar. Nos cuesta bastante llegar a los puestos de liderazgo por la propia estructura, pero también porque necesitamos empoderarnos firmemente y llegar a donde tenemos que estar, ¿no? Y que las mujeres estén lo apunté aquí para no olvidarme de decirlo, que queremos estar, las mujeres rurales queremos estar en el diseño de las políticas sobre seguridad alimentaria y medios de subsistencia. Creo que si conseguimos estar ahí, podremos avanzar y realmente que se logre la igualdad.
Muchísimas gracias. Bueno, esto es la teoría, no está mal si lo conseguimos poner algo en práctica. Let me just, well, first of all, I forgot to mention that our rapporteur, that is the person who does the big job, is Emna Sferi, sitting here. So I want to mention, because her job is very important. Before going, all the speakers will give a final message, very short, that you will take with you as a message takeaway for you. But before that, I'd like to invite if there is any comment or question from the floor, and then we'll invite the speakers to make their final message. So please. No, don't worry, don't be too gentleman. She was after you, so go ahead.
Thank you.
You are a gentleman, nobody challenges this, but just go ahead.
Thank you, sir. And your comment is very appropriate because I'm talking about gender. I'm going to talk about gender specifically on this. So this question goes to you, Christine, but also to Anna, and indirectly also to Eva as a member of UN Women. Christine, you mentioned very adequately that the investment in women yields one out of, if you invest $1, for instance, you get 5 out of it. While if it's non-gender, it's 1 out of 2, more or less. That's what I got. And all the studies we have done at UNICEF, at UNDP, UN Women, all show the same. So that's pretty incredible. And we're talking about the agricultural, specifically about the agricultural sector. But even in education, if you look at education, 1 extra year of education for women produces an exponential result in terms of overall GDP. So my question is, since the economic results of investing in women and education are so staggering, do you use this argument with governments and policymakers in these countries to shift from the issue of rights of women, which is the ethical way of approaching it, of course, but which doesn't work in some countries which are getting more and more conservative, and I'm not going to mention any countries, but we know who they are. Do we use these arguments as saying, if you invest in women, you're actually going to get a lot of people out of poverty, not just women, but the whole country? So that's, first of all, can you use this argument? And second, does it work? Thank you.
Christine, is you who will answer this easy question? And you as well.
Happy to give it a first shot. I completely agree. Investing in women reaps many times the rewards. I think my background, I was born and raised on a farm in Canada, and I always come back to nutrition. When we think simply of nutrition and health and development, we marry women off as children. They're anemic, of course. Even if they're not children, a lot of these women are producing babies already anemic themselves. That leads to low birth weight, that leads to low development. We're not feeding them correctly. So like statistically wide, we can give you example after example of why investing in women makes sense. And yes, as a policy director, I'm constantly bringing these arguments towards the government. And I would love it if more funded organizations like the ones on this panel because we have proven results. CARE is a massive, we're so amenemial, and we monitor absolutely everything we do, and we have proof on everything that we do. And so we can back it up with examples and stories, whatever people want. Yet still it's a decision by donors what they choose to fund.
And in principle, they should be very sensitive to these sort of arguments, because this is quite easy argument for a donor. But Anna.
Yes, thank you for this question. It's a very important question, whether we should. Traditionally, we as FAO, when working with the ministers of agriculture, prioritize this argument, economic argument. But increasingly, we also target and shape the arguments not only on economic, which is it's clear cut, but also trying to target the message so that the issue of gender equality doesn't become deprioritized or politicized issue. In the context of agrobiodiversity, we really focus on also seed conservation, which is something that in rural areas is fully the responsibility of older women, and these are the facts that should be acknowledged and recognized. And in context of food and nutrition security, we also have to take care of reinforcing the message that this is a responsibility of family members. It's not only, the responsibility of a mother or a daughter-in-law in a rural area that has to shelter food production, the household level. So in this case, yes, economic argument is very much appealing, but we also try to adjust the message, knowing the stakeholders and their interests and their values and priorities.
Thank you, Anna. Anyone else? Eva, you want to say something?
Sí, iba a añadir simplemente un dato, que es que estoy absolutamente de acuerdo y que si educamos a las mujeres, ¿no? desde pequeñas en otros modelos y conseguimos que llegan a ser nuestras gobernantes de futuro, probablemente nos iría mucho mejor, porque es que los países al final en su gran mayoría están dirigidos por hombres y entonces nos cuesta trabajo que vean esta parte, ¿no? Entonces, si las mujeres llegamos a esos puestos de poder, ¿no? Si superamos ese techo, que ya no le llamamos de cristal, nosotros ya decimos que es de hormigón, para llegar hasta allá arriba, pues entonces sería quizá más fácil.
Gracias. Lamia, please.
Thank you. Very interesting topic, of course, and usually I'm not involved, I'm involved, of course, as a woman, as a manager, as a researcher in such topics, but never expressed myself. It's the first time I'm going to say something about it. So I have maybe just to share some modest thoughts that I have. First of all, for me, don't you see that it's a question. I see most of the time that women are defending women. I feel very uncomfortable with that. This is why I'm refraining from doing it, because it's not a woman cause. It's a human right cause. And I don't even have to justify whether economically it's justifiable or not. Even if not, it's a human right. So women are not to be advocated because we are going to earn something. Even if there is nothing to earn, it's a right of humans. So that's the first thing. And the second, so don't you see that if we are still in this women defending women, for me, it's an indicator. And today, I really thank Octavi that you are there within them, because I would have rather been happy if I would have seen men defending the woman cause. And I hope that in the future it will come. So is that a problem, or maybe it is just merely what I'm thinking? The second thing is that I see much more, don't you think that the actions that you have today are more actions that are coming downstream, that are like activities, policies to treat the symptoms? What about really going to the fundamental laws of each country that are going toward favoring men? Because if you discard this, if you treat that, you don't have to do any actions. I know that you have to do them right now, but the law itself, this is what should change. And we have a lot of fundamental laws that are actually keeping more and more the problem of, the women issues, the gender issue. And just a suggestion, you were talking about caregivers. I wouldn't say women typically, but caregivers. And for me, we have to compensate those people. They have to be paid. Whoever the caregiver is, it's not specifically to a gender. It could be a man who's doing it. That's a job, because when we are raising, we are providing human resources for the society. So the society has to pay it. And with that, you will have a choice who would like to do it or not to do it. Well, that's the first time. Thank you very much for letting me just expressing my thoughts and comments with you. And I will be very keen to hear your answers. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Lemia, for these considerations. Noura wants to react to your comments, and if anyone else wants, you are invited to.
Thank you so much for your comments, and totally agree that it's a human rights for women. The point is, for women, like for women rights, the laws exists. The point is in the application of laws and social norms that prohibits the enforcement of these, like for example, the inheritance law. In most of MENA countries, it is women inherit on paper. In conservative ruler societies, they're not allowed to sell their own land. They're not allowed to manage their lands. So like changing the social norms, or getting over it. So there are like new programs that have tackled these issues through like establishment of safe spaces for women, like tackling social aspects, educating both or having awareness campaigns for both men and women, starting with women's self-empowerment, because if ruler women or the woman does not believe in herself, then she will not be able to have a voice and like claim for her rights. And also linking it to economic aspects, to training on income generating activities, new business models. So having these together, the social aspects and the economic aspects, this is really has proven to be like of something positive towards changing the social norms. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Noura. Also, you have. There are a couple of questions. There is a lady back there who started first, pero.
Thank you. I want to speak, not to ask, please. Yani, when Anna, thank you for all of you, the first, but when you ask Anna and she is optimistic, I hope I have the same feeling, but I can't really. I'm coming from land, women lose their right to life from Palestine. And this is not only in Palestine, in Sudan, in Ukraine, in many countries. Yani, I feel yani, it's not my right to feel optimistic. This is the first thing. The second thing is, it's really a big problem if we are feminist and see the picture is good. No, there is a half of picture is miserable. And it means we have a long road full of stones as women, to take, to be better, in better situation. Yani it's not only the laws or the norms or the, yani, we are suffering all over the world as a woman. Maybe here better than other countries, but even here, women are suffering, which means suffering is continuous and we must fight to take and to be better, to improve our situation. يعني not, I want to, يعني, to say how we are sleeping while women in other places are killed every day, haven't any rights, they haven't anything, food, home, water, anything. I'm astonished, FAO representative and others, they know what happened in these countries. Why they didn't speak about it? They speak about Turkey and speak about those women, please, because we must at least speak about them. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Two quick comments. One is in relation to the question of time that some of you mentioned, which I think it's fundamental. And we have to also, I mean, there is an element which is, of course, our project should promote equality amongst women. But there are projects that do harm. There are projects that do harm, that move women backwards because of charge in terms of time, et cetera, et cetera. So it should be an absolute definition of every project to make sure that at the very least will not deteriorate the life of women by imposing extra tasks. So, I mean, let's also have that conversation about those minimum requirements, right? And the other is in terms of engaging men. I think Christina mentioned it, is the way CARE works and many other organizations. And it's the same. We all know stories of projects that were working for the advancement of women, only with women, and it didn't work. It didn't work at all because it's us who has to be changed. I mean, we are the ones creating that oppression. So if we are not convinced, if we are not transformed, little will be obtained. So thank you for highlighting that, because I think there is no other way forward but engaging men.
Thank you very much. This is for the round of questions. Any reaction from the table? Quick. Anna?
Yes, I just wanted, it's not an answer. The optimism and the horrible situation that is now many women and men and children are facing is not a question. And however, you know, it's not a time to focus only. There has to be a little bit of optimism, because otherwise we can't move forward, because with the resilience there comes the feeling that yes, it's a phase, it's a horrible phase, it's a difficult phase, and women in many areas I already mentioned that indicators on the violence against women in our region are going in opposite direction. So one could say maybe women are reporting more, but the reality is, I think it's not the reaction to that. And coming back to what Juan was saying, if we talk about family farming, about the situation on family farms, about the engagement of women and men, we can't have separate projects for women without engaging with men, without son, without also intra-household dynamic is very complicated in rural household. The issue of land ownership is another area. So in this situation, this addressing Noura's point, not the laws, but the practices is a key. And one thing that I'm struggling to explain and to understand in the current situation is how we can move to more long-term support, to long-term work with women, family members, men, in the current donor format, that we are moving away from project funding, but we also are required to do a lot of things with a very short project deadlines. And there is a high risk of diluting the issues of gender equality, of human rights, and we should be very mindful about that. Yeah, so again, being a little bit optimistic, there is a room for that, but yes, we should.
Corto.
Can I? Yes, because we have 6:30, the bus is leaving, so very short. the rest. Very short question, a very short response maybe. If you should choose from your perspective, one country, one Mediterranean country, mainly in the southern and Middle East part, where the gender equality situation in rural areas is better as a good model of reference, which one you should choose? Would choose? Thank you.
I'm going to cheat and answer two things at the same time. Juan was talking about projects. Some projects do harm. CARE does a CARE is trying so hard to get this right, yet we do gender assessments every year. Are the projects, were they gender neutral, meaning no change, and that's okay? Were they harmful or were they positive? And again, we still get it wrong. We have a podcast called Failing Forward because we want other people to learn how a gender organization is getting women's empowerment wrong, so you don't do the same thing. To your question, matriarch societies, they still exist. Some of the people, I have a wonderful team, and the men on this team who are from matriarch societies, they're born knowing that women are part of the solution. So I was going to mention Uganda and Mozambique.
Anyone else? But quick.
The point is, in the Mediterranean, as Christine mentioned, in the MENA countries, it depends on the projects, but most rural women face the same challenges and same obstacles. But I would say, like Morocco, because there are government support policies that support the projects, the programs in a holistic way, and also the CSOs and NGOs have really good governance that helps them to support rural women. Thank you.
The same point, but I would add to the list Montenegro is doing a lot of progress in recognizing the need for addressing women. And Albania and Turkey has a bit of complicated situation, but they're also there. But why I want to highlight Montenegro, because the parliament adopted a declaration on rural women that was actually written with contribution from rural women, and I think this is a huge progress.
Yes, well, Montenegro maybe is an example, but there's a small example. Let's go for a final round of interventions. Very quick, less than 1 minute for each. So key messages that you want to deliver. And I'll start with Dario.
So first of all, after this last series of comments, I would just like to add that on my side, I've not purposefully avoided addressing this topic. I figured out that the table would have been entirely on gender today. The last 2 weeks have been quite hectic because it feels weird that I'm the only man in the panel that has not addressed this issue, but it's not done. I mean, it was not done on purpose, and I apologize for this. And as for the key messages, I would like to say that we believe that future cooperation should prioritize co-created territorial solutions and prioritize participatory and horizontal knowledge sharing and creation. And one last point, emphasizing that conservation of biodiversity and supporting rural livelihoods are not two separate objectives. They really have the same goal. So we should look at these two objectives within the same from the same perspective, trying to address them both at the same time.
Thank you very much. Noura.
It is just a message that I really wish that all rural women, all women in conflict areas live in peace and have and are safe. Thank you.
Thank you. That was short and clear. Eva.
Pues yo creo que ese nuevo modelo de cooperación tiene que incluir un poco lo que comentaban antes, que es fundamental que tenga la perspectiva de género. Todo proyecto debe de llevar perspectiva de género y así creo que podríamos conseguir algo.
Ya lo hacemos en PRIMA, por lo menos. Christine.
I was going to talk about partnerships. I was going to keep it simple, but we've heard that already from USAID, from Morocco, from Lebanon, from everybody. But I'm inspired by our women from Palestine. I feel often we're preaching to the choir. Everybody is a bit complacent because we know this. But working at CARE, I hear every day, literally every day, stories about women in Afghanistan who were left to die because their male rescuers weren't able to touch them. Or my husband had a stroke, so therefore my kids could not leave the house to get education, and therefore we couldn't get food. Last week, an African woman said, "I don't feel loved if my husband doesn't beat me." Fishing community in Asia, again last week, women are not taught to swim and are not allowed to touch the boats. This is in a fishing community. What we're talking about sounds light and we've been positive, but I feel in a lot of countries right now, and that's already where we are today. I'm worried in a lot of countries right now, we're going further back into the dark ages. I know we've, as my organization, had to take some hits on the language we use, even on market diversity. I'm not trying to change the gender of a zucchini or a cucumber. We're just trying to have more fruits and vegetables in your marketplace. On language like gender transformative approaches, I'm not trying to change anybody's gender. I'm just trying to say that a woman is empowered to live the life she wants to live. And that's what we called it at the organization that I work for. But all these things are becoming targets. And the more we divide and fear the unknown or fear the slightly other than us, we have no future, we have no hope. So please continue to fight for women's empowerment and join all of us in our efforts. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I let the final word for Anna because she's for optimism. So at least we finish with an optimistic way.
Just, it's a cliche for all of us here, but a simple sentence that rural women are backbone of agri-food systems has to be reminded all the time. Don't feel tired to remind people because it's not obvious for many of us. And as part of, everyone has a role in this. So yeah, let's keep it short. I think everyone is tired.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much to all the speakers. We'll keep fighting for women, but again, I repeat, is one of the biggest changes we had in the last 100 years. And I think that is one of the few that's irreversible, according to me. We may have some step backwards, but in the end, we'll make it. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for being and resisting. You will have the Medal of Resilience because you've been resisting until very late tonight. So thank you very much and see you tomorrow.